There is a quiet despair that settles over a gardener when a patch of earth simply gives up. I remember a corner of my own garden, long meadow, that had become lifeless. The soil was hard, gray, and compacted. Nothing I planted there seemed to thrive. It was as if the very life force had been drained from it, leaving behind a dusty, barren plot that stubbornly resisted every effort. This kind of soil feels like a lost cause. You can dig it, water it, and feed it, but it gives nothing back. It is a sad sight, a patch of ground that has forgotten how to grow, and it can truly test your resolve as a gardener. It feels like a failure, a small death in the heart of a place meant for life. Many gardeners, when faced with such a challenge, reach for powerful solutions. They might buy bags of expensive compost, fertilizers, or soil improvers, hoping to force life back into the ground. While these can sometimes work, they often feel like a temporary fix, a plaster on a deeper wound. The real problem is that the soil itself has lost its structure and its community of living organisms. It is not just a medium for holding plants. It is a complex, living ecosystem. When that ecosystem collapses, the soil becomes mere dirt. True revival is not about adding chemicals, but about inviting life back in, gently and patiently. I once thought this particular patch was destined to be a permanent failure. I had tried everything I knew. I had dug in compost, added mulch, and even let it lie fallow for a season. Still, it remained stubbornly inert. The rain would pool on the surface without sinking in, and on dry days, it would crack like old pottery. It was a horticultural puzzle that I seemed unable to solve. The frustration was immense. It is one thing for a single plant to fail, but for the earth itself to refuse your care feels like a fundamental rejection. It is a feeling many gardeners know all too well, and it is often the point where they are tempted to simply give up. But then, I was reminded of a simple, old-fashioned truth. The health of a garden is not measured by what you add to it, but by the life that is already within it. The secret to reviving that dead patch was not in a bag or a bottle from a garden center. It was in understanding the soil's most essential inhabitants, the humble earthworms. By focusing on what they needed, I could bring the entire ecosystem back from the brink. It was a shift in perspective, from trying to fix the soil myself to creating the conditions for nature to do the work. This simple change in approach was the key to unlocking the garden's hidden potential and bringing that forgotten patch back to glorious life. Worms are the true custodians of the soil. We often overlook them, these silent workers toiling away beneath our feet, but without them, our gardens would be nothing but dust. They are nature's plows, tirelessly tunneling through the earth. These tunnels create channels for air and water to penetrate deep into the ground, reaching the roots of our plants where they are needed most. A soil without worms is dense and compacted. It struggles to breathe and drink. A soil rich with worms, however, is light, airy, and full of life. They are the architects of a healthy soil structure, building a home where plants can truly flourish. Their work goes far beyond simple digging. As worms move through the earth, they consume organic matter, fallen leaves, dead roots, and other debris. What they excrete are called worm castings, and this material is one of the most wonderful natural fertilizers you could ever wish for. These castings are packed with nutrients that plants can easily absorb. They enrich the soil in a way that no chemical fertilizer can replicate. They improve the soil's texture, making it crumbly and easy to work with. When you see worms in your garden, you should rejoice. They are a clear sign that your soil is healthy, fertile, and alive. For those of us who grow our own vegetables, worms are particularly vital allies. The health of your carrots, lettuces, and tomatoes is directly linked to the health of the soil they grow in. Worms help to break down organic matter, releasing a steady supply of nutrients that vegetables need for strong, steady growth. This natural feeding process means your vegetables will be more resilient to pests and diseases. They will also taste better, with a flavor that can only come from a truly living soil. A garden full of worms is a garden that produces abundant, healthy, and delicious food, season after season. So, if your garden soil seems lifeless, the the first question to ask is not, "What can I add?" but "Where are the worms?" Their absence is the clearest signal that something is wrong. A lack of worms means there is no food for them, or the soil conditions are hostile to life. It may be too dry, too compacted, or too acidic. Bringing them back should be your primary goal. By creating a welcoming environment for these unseen heroes, you are not just improving your soil. You are restoring the natural cycle of life, death, and renewal that is at the very heart of a successful garden. They are the key to everything. You do not need expensive products to invite worms back into your garden. The solution is remarkably simple and can be made with ingredients you might already have in your kitchen. It is a gentle, natural brew that acts as a powerful invitation to the worms in and around your garden. The recipe is wonderfully straightforward. You will need a bucket, some water, molasses, and active dry yeast. These ingredients work together to create a feast that kickstarts the microbial life in the soil, which in turn attracts the worms. It is an old trick, but one that works with surprising speed and efficiency. To make this simple elixir, begin with a standard 10-liter bucket. Fill it with lukewarm water. It is best to use rainwater if you have it, as tap water can sometimes contain chlorine, which can be harmful to soil microbes. If you must use tap water, let it sit out for a day to allow the chlorine to dissipate. Next, add about half a cup of blackstrap molasses to the water. Molasses is full of sugar and minerals, providing an instant source of energy for the microorganisms in the soil. Stir it well until the molasses has completely dissolved into the water, turning it a dark, rich brown. Now it is time for the magic ingredient yeast. You will need 1 or 2 sachets of active dry yeast, the kind you would use for baking bread. Sprinkle the yeast over the surface of the molasses water. Do not stir it in just yet. Let it sit for a few minutes to activate. You will soon see it start to foam and bubble, which is a sign that the yeast is alive and working. This fermentation process is what creates the wonderful aromas and substances that draw worms in. Once the yeast is visibly active, give the mixture a gentle stir to combine everything. Finally, cover the bucket with a cloth and place it in a warm, sheltered spot for a few hours, or even overnight. This allows the mixture to ferment properly, developing the full range of beneficial compounds. The brew will develop a sweet, slightly bready smell, which is irresistible to earthworms. What you have created is not a fertilizer in the traditional sense. Instead, it is a biological stimulant. It is a wake-up call for the dormant life in your soil, a simple homemade potion to signal that the feast is ready and it is time for the worms to come back to work. So, how does this simple brew work its magic so quickly? It all comes down to biology. When you pour this mixture onto the soil, you are essentially feeding the microscopic life that already exists there. The sugars in the molasses provide an immediate burst of energy for bacteria and fungi. The yeast adds to this, introducing a huge population of active microbes. This sudden explosion of microbial activity is like ringing a dinner bell for earthworms. They are drawn to areas rich in the microorganisms they feed on, and your mixture creates the perfect feeding ground for them. This is why the method is so much faster than using traditional soil improvers like manure or compost. While well-rotted manure and garden compost are fantastic for building long-term soil fertility, they are slow release. They need to be broken down by soil life over many months, or even years, before their full benefits are realized. They are a long-term investment in your soil's health. Our simple molasses and yeast mixture, on the other hand, is a short-term stimulant. It does not add a huge amount of bulk organic matter, but it jump-starts the biological engine of the soil almost instantly. Think of it this way: adding compost is like building a restaurant and waiting for customers to find it. Applying the molasses mixture is like throwing a massive free party with an open invitation. The worms, being the most important guests, will arrive much faster. They will travel from surrounding areas, drawn by the scent and the promise of an easy meal. As they arrive, they immediately begin their work of tunneling, aerating, and enriching the soil with their castings. You are not waiting for compost to break down, you are actively recruiting the workforce that breaks it down for you. This approach is also gentler. Over-applying fresh manure can sometimes burn plant roots because it is too rich in nitrogen. Compost, if not fully rotted, can temporarily rob the soil of nitrogen as it decomposes. Our yeast and molasses brew has no such risks. It is a mild, liquid feed that nourishes the soil's ecosystem without overwhelming it. It is a way of working with nature rather than imposing our will upon it. You are simply giving the soil a helping hand, encouraging the natural processes that create fertility, and the results can be seen in days, not months. Applying your homemade soil elixir is just as simple as making it. The best time to do it is when the soil is already slightly damp, perhaps after a gentle rain or a light watering. This helps the mixture soak in more evenly and deeply, rather than running off the surface of hard, dry ground. An overcast day or a cool evening is ideal, as this prevents the sun from evaporating the liquid too quickly and gives the microbes more time to get to work without stress. You want to give the brew every chance to penetrate the soil and begin its regenerative work. Once your mixture has fermented for a few hours, give it one final stir. You can then pour it into a watering can. If your watering can has a very fine rose, you may want to remove it to prevent any small clumps from blocking it, though the mixture should be quite smooth. Begin to apply it evenly over the surface of your dead or struggling garden patch. Do not just focus on one spot. Try to cover the entire area you want to revive. A 10-liter bucket of the mixture should be enough to treat a small to medium-sized patch of about 2 to 3 square meters quite generously. As you pour, imagine you are feeding the soil itself, not just watering it. The goal is to drench the top few inches of earth, where most of the microbial activity happens. You should see the dark liquid soak in, carrying the sugars and yeast down into the ground. There is no need to dig it in or mix it into the soil. The worms and the water will do that work for you. Let nature take its course. It is a wonderfully satisfying feeling, knowing you are providing a wholesome meal for the billions of invisible helpers that are about to transform your garden. For a truly lifeless patch of soil, you may want to repeat the process. Apply the first treatment, wait for 3 days, and then assess the soil. You will likely notice it feels softer and looks darker already. A second application a few days after the first can really accelerate the process, encouraging an even greater number of worms to move in and set up home. This is not a one-time magic bullet, but a gentle and repeatable therapy for your soil. It is easy enough to do every few weeks on problem spots, or as an annual tonic for the entire garden to keep the soil life thriving. The most rewarding part of this entire process is witnessing the rapid transformation. Within just 3 days, you will be able to see and feel a noticeable difference. Go to the patch you treated and dig your fingers into the soil. Where it was once hard and compacted, you will find it is now softer and more crumbly. It will look darker and richer, a sign that moisture is being held more effectively. And if you dig down just a little with a trowel, you will almost certainly be greeted by the sight of earthworms, busy at work where there were none before. This is the first, thrilling sign that your garden is coming back to life. These changes have a direct and wonderful impact on your plants. For leafy vegetables like lettuce, spinach, and chard, the increased water retention and nutrient availability will result in lusher, greener growth. Root vegetables, such as carrots and radishes, will find the newly softened soil much easier to grow through, resulting in straighter, better-formed roots rather than stunted, forked ones. For fruiting plants like tomatoes or beans, the healthy, living soil provides the sustained energy they need to produce a bountiful and flavorful harvest. Every plant benefits when the soil beneath it is thriving. I urge any gardener who feels disheartened by a patch of poor soil not to give up. Before you spend a fortune on bags of compost or resort to harsh chemicals, try this simple, natural approach. It costs very little, requires minimal effort, and connects you more deeply to the natural processes of your garden. It is a lesson in humility, reminding us that sometimes the best solutions are not the most forceful ones. Often, the most powerful thing a gardener can do is to step back and create the right conditions for life to flourish on its own terms. Ultimately, this method is about more than just reviving a dead patch of earth. It is a celebration of the incredible power of life that is hidden just beneath our feet. It reminds us that a garden is not a battle to be won, but a partnership to be nurtured. By feeding the soil, we feed the worms, and in turn, the worms feed our plants. It is a beautiful, simple cycle. So go on, give it a try. Awaken the unseen heroes in your soil and watch with joy as your garden is reborn, full of vitality, health, and abundance. That is the true magic of gardening.